Hello everyone. So this is my second attempt to record this tutorial. The first one was like an hour and a half long, so it was like I couldn't upload it, I couldn't do anything, it froze my iPad, but I'm going to try to create this one and be a bit more kind of quick and precise so I can show you how I created this pattern. I'm going to break this tutorial into basically, before we start, my name is Kiri. I am an amateur designer, digital artist and illustrator. I literally just started this creative journey. So everything I know, I'm trying to kind of apply them into my designs. So yeah, if this tutorial, you find it helpful, let me know. I'm trying to kind of put together, I guess, the knowledge that I've gathered from other tutorials that I've been watching nonstop, all of these kind of last couple of months that I've been involved with digital design. But I think my approach to this tutorial would be to kind of explain the rationale behind some of the elements that I'm doing. Because what I am struggling with is some of the tutorials online, and there are many of them, and they're all, most of them are great. But my issue sometimes is that people would just do things without explaining why we're doing them. So I am going to try to kind of break this tutorial into two parts. The first one is it's basically a tutorial that will kind of talk you through the basics of the pattern creation. And then the second part would be kind of me attempting to recreate this pattern that you see here. So I'm going to kind of talk you through how to create the first block that will be repeated, and then what do we do to kind of create these patterns and kind of all around the screen that you see here. So this tutorial will be, as I said, two parts. The first one will be the main principles of the pattern and the way I create the patterns, and then the second one would be I will be applying these principles to recreate this pattern that I posted on Reddit, and I got a couple of questions to show you how I'm doing it. So let's start with the layers. I have two groups that will help us to kind of speed up the process. I'm organized this time, I promise. This time we're gonna get it down to maybe 20 minutes and I'll be able to upload it. So the first layer at the top, the group at the top, is named patterns. So this is where I have all my patterns, but at different scales. So I'll move it on the side so you can see. So we have the smaller scale, we have slightly bigger scale, and then we have, this is the block that when repeated multiple times, we can create this pattern, so the scale is smaller, but the repeat is, you can see more of the boxes around, and then when we make it smaller, you get this pattern, right? And then the second group is called individual pieces. This is where I have all the individual pieces that I have used to create these patterns. So we have the present and the box. We have this flower that I ended up not using for this pattern. It looked a bit weird, so the composition it didn't match basically the aesthetic of the final art. We have this weird berry. Will you find this berry in nature? Probably not. And if you do find it, I would recommend not going anywhere near it because it's probably going to be poisonous. We have this pine cone at the top, and then I have one of the branches down here. So when you see all of the elements together, you can kind of guess how we go from this point. Sorry, this is my dog barking. Go from this point to slightly more kind of comprehensive and kind of a pattern that makes sense, and then we go into this one. But as I said, before we go into this, we will kind of show you how we start the process. So you might be wondering, what is this shape at the top? This is essentially your answer to all of your pattern problems. This is the diamond shape that will act as a border, and you need to kind of create all of the elements within that border, and then you repeat that. You repeat whatever it's inside this shape. When repeated in the right way, this is how you create your patterns. But we're going to start, as I said, from the beginning. I will show you how we create that. What's the purpose of that? I will create a pattern that's like easily recognizable so you can see what we're talking about, and then I will repeat that multiple times to kind of show you the principles of this diamond shape and why we use that. So we create a new layer. I will go with a very kind of neutral background, so like a white background would do. You have a new layer here, and I usually choose for the border, as you can see, like a very kind of bold color that has nothing to do with any color that will be part of the composition. That's important because this border needs to appear very kind of different and separate in comparison to anything else you'll put together, right? So we have a square that is now red. We click the arrow at the top. Snapping needs to be on, and then there's a button in the middle saying rotate 45 degrees. So we click that, and then we hit fit to canvas. Why are we doing that? This now means that you have your white background, and then you have the red diamond that is now, we're 100% sure because we did the rotation for 45 degrees and then the fit into the canvas. We now know that this is in the middle, all of the edges are in the middle of the canvas, and that there is that alignment. So whatever we create inside this space will also be in the middle of the canvas, right? But before we go into kind of the more abstract design with the boxes, I will create literally like actually let me reduce the opacity so it's not that overwhelming. I will create something, I don't know, very generic, but shapes that we will be able to understand. So we create a new layer. I will do like let's make a really big circle. We keep it right. Let's make sure that this is also in the middle. So snapping needs to be on to do the alignment. We move it. Once we see the two orange crosses in the center, we know that, come on. We know that it's in the middle. There we go. So you see that? So the cross in the middle means that this is now in the center of the canvas, right? And let's create, I don't know, just a random, we can create something like, I don't know, like a random shape. Let's just, like a weird doodle like that. Let's give it a color. So let's make it like dark blue. It doesn't really matter. So this is not gonna be like a design piece that we will use. I'm just trying to create, and in fact, let me do this. So I'll put 1, 2, 3. Let's choose a different color so you can see that as we do so 1 at the top, 2 on the side. You see I'm staying within the borders, 3 and 4, right? So now we have a design that looks like this, right? We are going to attempt to duplicate this and make it into a pattern, right? So we now have our whole composition, the circle, the doodle, the numbers on the side. We don't need the guide anymore. So now the process will be to move this shape around in the 4 corners of the canvas and outside of the canvas as well, to basically recreate the pattern that we saw in the beginning. So how we would do that, we would usually kind of click that and we move it around. But remember, this is a pattern. So when you click that, when on the layer of the design, it only picks up the square that has anything designed in the middle, right? We don't want that. We want accuracy. We want the whole canvas to move around. So we come here, we change the color again to something that's like really obnoxious so we can know that it's that color, and we color the edges of the canvas, right? I'm not going too fast. This is literally the layer that has the the design and the green elements on the two areas. When we click the arrow now, what do we see? The whole canvas is picked up. That's what we want, right? So let's go ahead and duplicate that 4 times, because as I said, we will now move this design to the 4 corners and we will keep the design in the middle. That will create our pattern. And now with the numbers that you will see, it will make so much more sense when you see it in an actual design. Now, this is a random design. It probably doesn't make sense to you, but I've put the numbers on top so you can see clearly how the numbers and the circles can so easily be repeated when pushed around in the right way. Okay, I will hide all of the elements. I'm starting with the first layer. I click the arrow and then we need to make sure that snapping is on. Both magnetics and snapping, both of these elements are on. And the order I follow is we go from top left to bottom right. What do I mean by that? We move this design, move number 1, all the way to the left until we see the orange arrow, the orange cross in the center, and all the way to the top, right? And until we see that orange circle. And we hide that. Layer number 2, arrow, snapping is on, all the way to the left and all the way down until we see the orange cross. Now, before we move to the next layers, it's great if we can come here, and we don't need that guide anymore because we made the move. We don't need that green thing, but now it stands out because it's green. So we can easily come here and delete that, right? Perfect. We go to the third layer. Oh, let's hide the previous one. We go on the other side. The arrow, snapping is on. We push all the way to the top until we see the orange cross in the middle and all the way to the right. You see, crosses in the center of the canvas and also at the top. That means we're right in the center. Let's delete the guide. We don't need that anymore. We're hiding that. We're revealing the next layer. Arrow at the top, snapping is on. We go all the way down and all the way to the right until the orange cross is revealed in the center, right? Perfect. And now for the last piece, now this needs to stay there. And before I reveal the next one, so once I reveal everything, it will make sense. But let us now go to that layer. We take our eraser, we delete the guides, and let's start revealing the pieces, right? So we have this at the bottom, at the top, left, right? So as you can see, we have these elements being repeated all around the main design. So number 2, you can see the top of number 2 is here and the bottom of number 2. So the top of number 2 is here and the bottom of number 2 is here. You see the numbers? So number 3 is here, but it's also here. Number 1 is here. Number 4 is here. That means when we move things correctly, and I'll show you what I mean by correctly, this will make sense and the pattern will be designed. So let's pinch, and also a good test is when you see the layers here. So as you can see, the top 2 layers kind of give you half of the design. So you see number 1 on this layer, the half of number 4 is here. You also see half of number 4 on this layer and half of number 3, and the same goes here. So when we pinch it all together, you know how we pinch the next step we now need to do is duplicate that and move it and reduce it to 1/4 of the original design. That's how we create the pattern. So we duplicated these layers 4 times. We go to the first layer. Again, arrow needs to be on, snapping is on. And now we go to, actually, let me unpick it so I can talk to you through how we do the movement. So we will go to this layer here and we'll push that corner to the up here, right? So we want to push that corner up here. Okay, let's do that together. First layer is, the top layer is picked. We click the arrow, snapping needs to be on, and we push it up here until we see the orange cross in the middle, okay? The second layer, exactly what we did the last time, we're pushing it on the left and to the bottom. So all the way down here until we see the orange cross in the middle. Third layer, arrow snapping on, we push it all the way to the top on the right hand side until we see the cross in the middle, and then the last layer, and now things will become very obvious. Last layer, arrow, snapping needs to be on, and then we push it to the opposite direction, boom, like we have here. So now you see the original, oops, that is a good way to check alignment, because something seems to be off here. Oh, that's so great that it happened. See, so there is a line here that seems to be an alignment problem. And we need to go and fix that and see where that problem... Oh, I love when things like that happen, because that has happened to me a million times. I suspect this was this piece and it didn't quite hit in the middle. There we go. So now you don't see the line, right? Perfect. So now, as you can see, by repeating this one piece, we have number 1, 2, 3, and 4 repeated as a pattern. And that is the first pattern, the first layer of the pattern that we can create. Now, if we don't, you know, if that's too big for us, depending on our design, we can pinch this together and repeat the whole process. We duplicate it 4 times, layer 17, snapping, we push it to the top. See, orange lines needs to be visible when we move things, so the alignment is correct. Up here, down here, perfect. Okay, so you see now the whole pattern is being repeated, right? And we can play around with the scale as much as we want. It doesn't make, it doesn't make it, right or wrong. We can go with whatever pattern we want. This is kind of the principle of how we create patterns. The main design needs to be in the middle, and then we kind of play around with it and we recreate that. Now, if we're happy with that, we can pinch it, and this is our design. Now, I left the background blank for a reason, because if you can remember from this design, which again, we will go back to that and show you how we create something with actual designs, I always leave that the background blank. So if you see this has a blank background, and the reason for that is I like it like that because you can then be creative with the background color. So you can, oops, come on, perfect. So you can then choose a different background depending on your design. So you can go with green, you can go with kind of dark red, light yellow. But if you give your original pattern, your original block, a background color, that makes it a bit more difficult to play around with these patterns, okay? So now we've touched on that. I will end part 1 so that the video is not huge. We've shown you how to create this design, and I'm gonna now show you how to create the Christmas one, okay? I'll be back.